You are listening to the daily homily for Magdala in the Holy Land.
On that day, Jesus went out of the house and sat down by the sea. Such large crowds gathered around him that he got into a boat and sat down, and the whole crowd stood along the shore. And he spoke to them at length in parables, saying, "A sower went out to sow. And as he sowed, some seed fell on the path, and birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky ground, where it had little soil. It sprang up at once because the soil was not deep. And when the sun rose, it was scorched, and it withered for lack of roots. Some seed fell among thorns, and the thorns grew up and choked it. But some seed fell on rich soil and produced fruit, 100 or 60 or 30fold. Whoever has ears ought to hear the gospel of the Lord."
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
So these little children remind us of Jeremiah's words that we just heard. Jeremiah has marvelous expressions, very powerful expressions. And he says, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you." We should think about that. We should think about that. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And when God knows us, that's what establishes us. And God cannot know us without loving us. So imagine that we are personally loved by God since before we were formed in the womb. Maybe you have not meditated upon that. I recommend very much that you take this point with the cries of these babies in your ears and realize you also made such cries when you were small, and I did too, and that God loved us before we were created. We need to meditate on that. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And then, not only that, but before you were born, I dedicated you. So Jeremiah, before he was born, he was dedicated as a prophet to the nations. So if that's true, then what does this schoolgirl need to do? She needs to think, Lord, you have a dedication for me, and my task is to discover what your dedication is for my life. And that's fascinating, because somebody cares about me, not just my parents, not just my older brother, but actually God cares about you. And God equipped you with so many talents for a mission. And you don't know what it is yet. You're just 14. What are we going to do, It's okay. You don't have to feel guilty about being 14. God knew that anyway. But you have this calling. And actually, the calling of our mission evolves over time, because your mom and dad are now the grandparents of these children. And that's a new chapter in their calling, to be grandparents. And they didn't have any school of grandparenting like your dad did for doctor. So they have to learn in practice how to be a grandparent, how to be an uncle, how to be an aunt, even if you're only 14. It's amazing, it's interesting, and that's a vocation. And if you want to find out what the vocation is, we turn over the page. And Jesus says that we are all sowing seeds. What seeds are we sowing? And we have so many opportunities. Imagine when a child goes to school with the idea that they're going to school in grade school, in the little classes, to sow seeds of kindness, of goodness, of helpfulness, of compassion, of not judging. So many seeds we can sow all the time. How many seeds can we sow in a day? How many people do we meet? How much affirmation can we give them? Every one of those little acts is sowing a seed. And you have no idea how fruitful it will be. I must say that I am very thankful to my mom, because when we were small, obviously, bullying is a topic nowadays, but it always happened. And there was no major program to address it. But there was a situation where there was one child that was never chosen to be in the competition of the little games that the children organized themselves in the schoolyard, and this person was always left last. And somehow Mom put it into our heads that we would say to the ones organizing on a particular day, well, if you're not choosing her to play, we're going to play with her. And this ended the problem. And so even I had forgotten completely about that. My sister reminded me many decades later. But it's interesting, that those seeds were sown. And they were sown in this case by my mom, other things by my dad, other things by grandparents, other things by neighbors. Because you're sowing seeds in your classmates, you're sowing seeds in your friends, the words you use, the jokes you tell, the way you live. We are sowing seeds, and our big job is more the seed sowing than the harvesting. Because who knows who will harvest from those seeds? I know of one student that said his dad had called up a person who met this student and said, "You saved my son yesterday from suicide," because of a nice greeting that person gave that other person. This kid was very apparently discouraged. Nobody knew. The person who gave the greeting didn't know. But that happened. And that's beautiful. We always need to sow seeds. And we don't know where the seed will fall, on good ground or bad ground. That's not our problem. Sow the seeds. Keep sowing the seeds. Be a sower like Jesus was, sowing seeds all the time. So we are loved by God since before we were created. We have a mission by God since we were in the womb. And we have a great concrete way to start discerning what seeds does God want me to sow wherever I am, with the people I'm with.
Thank you for joining us today. If you want to learn more about Magdala, follow us on YouTube and on Facebook.